Hey everybody, you're about to listen to the Ben Mayfield podcast. I appreciate you listening, subscribing, and following us on Instagram, on Spotify, and on YouTube. Just want to let you know that this episode is interviewing Captain Chad Miller. He's a fantastic friend of mine. He talks a lot about firefighting, talks about ministry, but we also want to let you know that we also get kind of heavy with some topics about mental health and emotional health. And so just be warned that we do talk about that towards the end of the episode, but it's fantastic. So make sure you subscribe, and for more content, follow us on YouTube. Okay, thank you.
And
That's the name of today's episode. Is and podcast and ...
because there's always more to continue on the conversation. You never just stop.
Never once stop.
Because you stop and then you just stop performing. Like you're always striving to get to the next level.
That's facts. I feel like that's kind of like who we are as people. Is always trying to strive to get to the next level. But also that could be dangerous though. Like where can you just not just be happy or content like where you are?
That's a great question. That's something that we should discuss on the podcast.
Welcome to the Ben Mayfield podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Hayfield. Today we have with us probably my first time ever. I'd have to go look with the GWB podcast, now the Ben Mayfield podcast. I don't think I've ever had a captain on the podcast. And I want to say it's an honor. It's a privilege. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity until you're on the next episode that you're on. Right here to have you on the podcast. It's Captain Chadwick, the Chadinator, the Chadster Miller. Captain Miller, how are you?
Well, Glenn Hayfield, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you and join you in this wonderful podcast studio. So much great artwork here. Mm-hmm. Great hospitality. The director's awesome.
He's great. Give a shout out to our director, producer, Will over there. No, for real though, I like having you here. And if people don't know, Chad and I, we work together doing different ministry stuff. And one of the things that I was nervous about when I first came here was, man, I'm the new kid on the block. I don't know anybody. I don't know if people have ulterior motives. A lot of times when you meet somebody or you come into a new organization, people want to be nice or charming, but they secretly go like, you had this position and I want you to do this or do that. And so when I first came in, I was like, all right, I met lots of volunteers, met lots of different people, don't know what their agendas are. Are they here just to be kind and love and like do the mission of Christ? Or they got something that maybe they really want this to happen or do this? But you and a former guest of the podcast named Jesse were both two of those guys who like really sought after me, and I felt like y'all were like, we want to befriend him, like we want him to know like we're on his team, and the team that's not like we're like Team Ben, but like we're Team Jesus, and like we want you to like help lead that. And I just want to say thank you, like thank you for that hospitality and that welcoming me into this new role that I was in.
Yeah, well, I think having that team component where it's not just Chad's agenda or Jesse's agenda or Ben's agenda. Having that collaboration, that teamwork with everybody, with the other mentors and the other leaders, the students that are at the church, that's something that makes a successful team because everybody brings their unique strengths to the group. Many people say Jesse and I are a night and day difference with how we do certain things, but together we're able to reach the most or a significant portion of the students. And other mentors and leaders, and we just have a heart and a drive to do ministry together. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it boils down to is you have your team, your groups that really come together as one and focus on, look, we're trying to glorify the kingdom. We're trying to bring people to heaven through Jesus, of course, but all that's done through community and these relationships that are built. And it seems silly to not include anybody, especially somebody coming into a youth pastor role in the church.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, such a well-spoken, too. I was like, all right, come on, Captain Miller. If he was not a captain, he would not speak this well. So I appreciate that. I talk about you being a captain a lot, and I don't mean that jokingly. I mean that sincerely, because I think it's really cool that you're a captain. You worked hard for it, and working hard for it meant you had a long career. If you don't know, he's a captain in a firefighter department, and he does firefighting. And so with that, what made you decide to want to be a firefighter? Of all the different career paths that you could have, been a rocket scientist, maybe you could have been like a secret agent, maybe work for the government. You could have been like a race car driver. I'm imagining these were the possibilities that you had for you, but you're like, I want to do this one. I want to do that. What was that kind of like? Like, what made you decide that career path?
Yeah. So, growing up, I've always had a heart to serve others. I had a heart for public safety. My great-grandfather was a sheriff deputy up in New York. Nice. So on the police side, but I always had a pull to go into public safety just because I wanted to help the community. It was always my dream job, probably throughout middle school when I first started attending the youth group here, to work as a firefighter.
So you had the heart to serve. And so, like, you have this, it makes me interested. So you started doing youth group here back in the day, and so you learned what it means to serve and being part of service right here in church, and, like, serving people, like, through the kingdom, through the ministry. But also, I think it's cool that it translated for you to serving in public safety, in public, kind of like in the community, where it's not like serving in the sense of, like, trying to bring people to Christ, but you are serving them and how you act with them and loving to them, which all that is rooted in your faith of, like, how you love people or how you're kind or how you're hospitable. It's kind of like Chick-fil-A, like, they're not necessarily a church, but we always call it the Lord's Chicken, because the way that they present with their customers, the way that they talk as a team is, like, very similar to, like, how Christ would probably have us act towards one another. So, like, it mirrors each other. So, like, where did you do mission projects in middle school and high school? Did you go serve people?
Yeah, so really my faith started in middle school, about 6th or 7th grade. Didn't really have a pull to go to church. It was just I woke up one day and was like, oh, I see some of my friends, they go to church. I want to see what that's all about. But I didn't really grow up going to Sunday services. It was just a feeling that I had.
Yeah.
My dad, he would always wake up early, take me to church Sunday mornings. I would go and help with the sound and audio group in the main services. I'd go run around and help put batteries in the microphones.
You were a tech kid? You did tech? That's awesome.
I was just the battery putter in a
microphone. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
But I fell in love with volunteering there, and then from there it transitioned into the children's ministry, where I would volunteer with Vacation Bible School and some of the other programs that they had. I was in the youth choir. I was a student leader in the youth choir. Couldn't sing, still can't sing, but I was a middle school, high school student that was helping out on the Wednesday night choirs, just trying to be that example, a leader in the church, as I myself, as a middle school student or a high school student, was still trying to learn who Jesus was. Through those volunteer opportunities, I was able to make relationships with some of my peers, some of the leaders, some of the mentors in my life, and through that's what continued to have that fire inside of me burning. Get it? Because fire department.
Hey, let's go. Come on, subscribe to that.
Have that fire inside of me burning to serve the community, because that's where I felt like I was giving the most back to Jesus, helping other people figure out who Jesus was, supporting others, and just having that collaboration, and that sense of community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. I in a similar vein, I did a lot of 4-H growing up. So I didn't go to youth group, was part of church in middle school and high school years, and I did a lot of 4-H. So shout out to all my 4-Hers out there. And part of 4-H is, is your head, your heart, your hands, and your health. And the hands was always like going out and learn by doing. That's what kind of the motto was, like go out there, make the best better. Like, we want to go out there and serve, do different community service projects. So you're going to the old folks home, or you're starting a club for elementary school kids, or you're doing something that got you to serve, and recognize that it's not about you. And I think we live in such a world that's very you-centric or me-centric. It's all about me. In 4-H, or it sounds like, you know, your youth group and different clubs help you, like, kind of change that mindset of, like, it's not about you. Like, get out and serve the greater good. Go serve the community. Go serve those who are less fortunate. And having great parents who had a lot of great values, it kind of felt like that was my youth group. Like, my church youth group was 4-H. You know that, once again, there was no Jesus part of it. But when I started in college, going to youth group, it was a natural fit when we started doing service projects. I was like, let's do this. Like, I got it. Like, it made sense to me. And so for you, with growing up in youth group and learning how to serve and having these mentors, there was probably a point where you decided to go serve when you graduated high school, and it felt like a natural fit. And so you were talking about your grandfather, was it, or your great-grandfather, who was a police officer?
Great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather in New York, and that's awesome that he served. And so you were leaning a little bit on the blue, but eventually you turned red and did a fire department. So like what was the transition and the hard part about that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I knew I always wanted to go into the fire service.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, throughout high school, our city had a Police Explorer program, which was a pathway for high school students, freshmen to seniors in high school, to meet and have this group that meets regularly, about 15 of us, and learn how to be police officers. Mm-hmm. At first, I was like, it's police, but it was that foot in the door to public safety. So I went 4 years into the Police Explorers, worked my way up the ranks in that, up to senior year, and then one of my police advisors pulled me aside after I graduated and said, hey, I just want to tell you I'm so proud of you and the things that you've accomplished, but I think you'd be a much better fireman than a police officer.
Oh, interesting. Was that hard? Is that kind of hard to hear a little bit? Like, kind of like, what the heck, man? I've been working hard on this.
It was kind of a mix of two emotions. One was like, okay, whew, good, I knew it. And the second one was like, well, I just spent 4 years training to go into the police department and learning about law enforcement, and now it's like, yeah, you probably wouldn't make a good police officer. But I also understood the source from where it was coming from, and the breakdown of how it was explained to me, and it made a lot of sense. I knew, again, at the end of the day, that I was very interested in like the fire and the medical and the EMS and riding the big red fire trucks. It's a big deal. Like, who wouldn't want to
for
do that?
Sure.
So that was one of the pieces to that transition from the police to the fire side. Another big piece to that was I believe it was my freshman year in high school. We took a mission trip. And on the mission trip, we had somebody who was one of my mentors. He was my small group mentor throughout high school. He worked in the city where I grew up. He was actually a firefighter, and
nice.
He spent so much time with us, just pouring into us, going on these mission trips with us, meeting with us Sunday nights throughout the week, just encouraging us, and through that, I really fell in love with the profession. Like, we would set up service projects with our small group to go around to the local fire stations and help them clean the fire trucks and mop the floors. And I don't know how well of a job that we did, but everybody was appreciative of it. It was a great camaraderie.
Yeah, it's the
great
heart
time
behind it too.
Yeah. So the two of those were really the big pieces to how I fell in love with the fire service.
Yeah. So I love that too, because I think it allows people to almost have permission to be able to change their mind or change their kind of their heart behind things. Because sometimes you feel like for me, very similar. I'm telling you, it spooks me a little bit. I thought when I was in high school, I was going to be a 4-H agent. Like, I was going to go, which, if you don't know, 4-H is part of the University of Georgia.
Like secret agent.
Yeah, I was gonna be a secret agent that did 4-H events, and so I was like, I'm gonna be a county agent, 4-H, like Mr. Lumpkin County 4-H agent. Like this is what I'm gonna do, or be the camp director because there's like 4-H summer camps, and I was like, I'm totally gonna do this. And then when I started college and I really got into it, I was like, I don't really want to do that. Like, and is it okay to change my mind? Like, is that all right? And it's like, yeah. Like, if you feel like, as you grow, you have more experiences. And even like now, we're in our late 70s and like we can change our ideas if we want to. It's a joke. I hope people watching are laughing. Like these guys, surely not in their 70s.
It's the hairline.
It's the hairline or the lack of thereof. And so like what can we do to like be okay with like changing our hearts and our minds and our career path? And for you, it was like transitioning from, okay, well, I just spent 4 years learning about being a police officer, but now I'm kind of, through my mentor and through these experiences, really choosing firefighter. It was me with teaching, 4-H agent to teacher, and then I started teaching, and I was like, I actually kind of want to be a minister. And so I switched again. And it was like, is that okay? Like, is that bad? And I was like, no, that's totally fine. Like, you have permission to pursue things that you're passionate about. But it doesn't always make things easy. And so as you're pursuing the firefighter, you're like, okay, like this is what I want to do. And I feel like there's some misnomers. Like I want to, before I get to misnomers for firefighting world, I want to get into, you had this idea of like, this is what I want to do. I want to pursue this. How do you get your foot in the door? Like, what do you do? Is there a firefighter school? Is there, you watch like Rescue Heroes or Paw Patrol? And it's like, I'm just kidding. It's another firefighting intense. Like, do you watch that and go, or like, what's the Chicago Fire that's like on TV? It's like the drama about the fire department. Like, do you watch that and go like, all right, this is good research. Like, I want to go do this. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that helped me with getting my foot in the door was having that mentor that poured into me that was with the fire department.
Oh, that helps.
And,
yeah.
And I was able to bounce some questions off of him. We were able to have these conversations. I was able to pick his brain on what are the best routes to take, and really do a couple ride-alongs where I was actually able to ride in a fire truck for a shift, hang out at the stations, help with cleaning the trucks, the house chores, which is like cleaning and mopping, cleaning the toilets, all that fun stuff, right? Because you live there at the fire station for at least a day. Mm-hmm. Right, so you're there for at least 24 hours. Some fire departments even more, and then you have a couple days off. Then after you know that you want to jump into the fire service, having a department that sponsors you is a big deal. So there are a lot of fire departments in the metro area where you can apply for, and they'll pay for you to go through your rookie school.
That's nice, yeah.
The minimum requirements for rookie school for the basic firefighter academy is 8 weeks long. So you go to school, you're at the state academy for 8 weeks. Some departments
do you like sleep there?
You sleep there, you eat there.
Oh, okay. So you're like invested. It's not like something you do online.
Oh no, you're hands on. You're learning about firefighter tactics. You're learning about firefighter mental health, which is a big deal in the fire service now because you see so many things when people call 911, it's typically not because people are having a good day. So you have to really prepare your mind, your brain with some of the things that you see and some of the things that you internalize.
Some things you can't unsee.
Some things you can't unsee. So the fire academy is great. It's very physically demanding. It's very emotionally demanding.
What's the most physical thing you had to do? You do like 100 push-ups, do some burpees.
At least 4 push-ups.
At least 4 push-ups. I mean, like before though, did you have to like do they like? I guess they don't put you on fire, but they set you like near heat.
Oh yeah, so they have these burn buildings where it's these Connex boxes or these cinder block buildings that they put pallets inside, hay inside, and they send you inside those rooms, and you have to go extinguish the fires. You have to go search for victims inside of these rooms, which they're super hot. Yeah. You have to climb upstairs, climb downstairs. There's some scenarios where you're inside of a maze and you're blindfolded, or there's smoke inside the building. You can't see. Like, you could put your hand in front of your face and not even see it. and you have to climb
What,
through like
dude?
rafters. You've got instructors that are standing over you where they're trying to hook you with different wires to see how you would get out of a certain situation.
Does that weed out a lot of people, you think?
It does. It does. There are a lot of people that don't like confined spaces or those stressful environments where it's like, all right, I'm going to hit the panic button right now. In the fire department, you can't really hit that panic button because people's lives are relying on you coming to their rescue. Yeah,
for me, it'd be breathing. I mean, I'm asthmatic, and so it's like, I do that with clean oxygen. Imagine there being smoke and you have all this stuff, and you're like, I can't breathe. I need my inhaler, like taking off the fire mask inhaler shot. I feel like that probably wouldn't be conducive.
That's not a good idea.
That's not a good idea.
To take your mask off.
Okay,
And smoke.
well, all right. Well, asthma has once again defeated me. So you go through these physical. Has ever seen those videos of like military guys that get pepper sprayed?
Oh yeah.
You don't have to get pepper sprayed, did you?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's a big fear of mine.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, have you ever had like in the cartoons, you never had to do like big buildings though, did you? Like like they have like the giant trampolines and like little things where people have to like jump out.
No, that's the thing I've heard, but I've never had to do that.
Okay,
no.
Maybe I need to do more firefighter research before I start saying things like that. It's like that's actually really offensive to firefighters, and I apologize. But you know what I'm talking about, like in the like Bugs Bunny cartoons, and they would jump out the window and they catch them.
They've got big air cushions or
Yes!
trampolines. Trampolines are more of like
that's like 90s,
old school, but
80s. Yeah. We're way past that. So I digress. So you go through the physical, emotional, maybe a little spiritual process of figuring out what this is. Did y'all do? Let me ask you this question. This one's serial. Is when we did lifeguard training, it still messed me up. I'm in a sophomore in college, and Red Cross training. They made us watch this video of like a security camera of like a pool, and it was like, watch this video for like how to improve the lifeguarding. And this lifeguard is like chit chatting with this person like beside him. And they show this kid go under, like little bloop. And then it's like, here's the timer. And they set the timer. 2 minutes pass before the lifeguard goes like, oh, whistle, and like jumps in and like goes to save the kid. And the kid dies. They made us watch this video. And it was traumatizing of like, and it was like, if you as a lifeguard don't pay attention, this could happen to you. And it was like, yeah, okay. So, which freaked me out in the sense of like, I'm definitely like alert to like I am watching this and I'm going to pay attention. Were there moments in the firefighter school where you're training where they're like, hey, like here's some consequences if you don't do what we're telling you? Like either your brother in arms, your sister in arms could get hurt, you could get hurt, someone else could get hurt. Like, do they do any of those type of scenarios?
Yeah, they show different videos on specifically techniques that you can use. So a lot of times you see on cartoons or these videos of.
Is that your phone?
Yes, a lot of times you can see these videos where they show some of the consequences of actions that you take when, like, if you make a wrong action as a firefighter, where you can actually make the fire grow exponentially, which could cause a lot more harm to anybody that's potentially inside.
Oh, yeah.
Firefighters that are inside, the people that you're trying to rescue, and also make it a lot more difficult when you're trying to put these fires out. Like if you, a lot of times you see these movies where firefighters go in or somebody goes in and kicks the doors open or breaks all the windows out.
Yeah.
Well, what people don't realize is that's actually introducing a lot of oxygen, which helps make the fire grow.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Wait, so have you seen movies like my dad does with the military? He's like, that's not real military tactics. I'm like, okay, Dad, we get it. You're a war hero. Like, are you the same thing with firefighter scenes? Like, oh, there's a kid in here, and they bust the door down, and it's like, oh, let me help the kid. Well, actually, like, that's actually not a good technique. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to watch those movies or those TV shows that are dramified.
Yeah,
right?
Dramified.
You kick open the door, and then you see straight to the end of the other room where, like I said earlier, you go inside of a house fire, and you can't see in front of you. Like, that's not a thing.
I just imagine, like, they're doing, like, an episode of the fire, like, drama, but it's like more realistic. So they're like, we gotta rescue the kid. So like they open the door and it's just like smog, and then the next 10 minutes of the episode is like, hello, hear my voice, like come to me. It's like not super captivating, not like sexy, where they're like busting in, like you're saying, like see them across the room, they're like, oh, like something falls on them, they knock it off, and
yeah, the pipes are exploding as you walk by them, and the steam's like blowing in people's faces. No,
he's like, I'm gonna lit this heavy fire thing, like, ugh. Yeah, not super accurate.
Not totally. Hollywood is great. They show some really awesome scenes, but that doesn't always depict what a true fire scene looks like.
Yeah,
most of the time it doesn't.
So going in there, yeah, you definitely more realistically, that's what it's going to be about. That's good. So with that, you go through, you actually see some scenarios, you actually learn what it's like, what not to do, what actually to do, and then I guess you're sponsored, like you said, and then you graduate firefighter school. What happens then? Do you get like automatic employment if someone sponsored you? Is that the idea? If they sponsored you and you graduate, is that a job opportunity per se?
It all depends.
All depends. Okay.
The way I went through the fire academy, I actually had a volunteer fire department pay for my schooling. So when I graduated from that academy, working for a volunteer fire department doesn't really pay the bills.
Oh, actually, someone say you get $0.
Yeah.
Because it's volunteer.
You make twice as much upon graduating the fire academy. So it's actually a pretty cool thing. But no, in all seriousness, then you have an opportunity. One, you're in that fire academy and you're networking with people from across the state, where a lot of departments are hiring, right? So depending on how much you put into the effort when you're in the school, when you're in the training, when you focus on the relationships that are built, then people really start to see who you are. And then they go back and they tell their chiefs or whoever's in charge of hiring, like, hey, this is somebody that might be worth hiring and having them join the force. And that's actually something that happened to me. Before I graduated from the fire academy, we had, where I was first employed as a full-time firefighter, their division chiefs, their deputy chiefs came down to the fire academy and said, hey, we want to hire from this class. If you're interested, put in your application. Now, I heard that, and I was a little hesitant because I was scared. It was chiefs from a big department. There are a lot of high rises that are.
And how young are you at this point?
I was 18.
You're 18. Oh yeah, you're young, son.
Yeah.
You young buck.
So I heard that, and I was like, no, like that's not for me. I'll stick with the volunteer fire department. That's probably more my speed. Well, I prayed about it, basically saying, God, if this is something that you want me to pursue, then you're gonna have to show me. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know that I'm interested in chasing after it. Well, a couple weeks later, the same chiefs came back down and said, hey, we've got 6 spots that are open. We want to hire from this class, and there are only 3 of us in that class that weren't already employed. So to me, if you're a math person, like I know you're an educator.
Yeah, I mean the odds are in your favor.
Yeah.
It's like you might get hired twice. Who knows?
Could be, right? But I talked to one of the chiefs and said, hey, I'm a little nervous about this. I feel like I'm very young. The department is a very big upcoming department. I don't know that that's something that I'm prepared for. He said, well, if you don't take an opportunity, sit down, pray about it, see what you think. And if you want to jump on it, then awesome. If not, then I respect that too. So I sat on it, prayed for it for a few days, and then ultimately ended up filling out the application. And then before I even graduated the academy, I had an opportunity for a job interview, and then was hired officially within the next month of graduating from the fire academy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's one of those God moments too, because I'm sure there's a lot of like fear and of the uncertainty. I think that's a lot of us struggle with that, but just not knowing what the future details, what the future holds, or we're not guaranteed anything in this world of like, oh, I will do this next year. Well, we hope. You never know. And so like to be 18 and have that kind of that, what is my job? What is my career? What's the next thing I'm going to do? you know, and to have these people come up to you, and then of course what's important too, you prayed about it. It's like, let me pray, let me focus on like what does the Lord have me do, and then you're able to take this opportunity. What are some things too? Like I know we have a lot of young listeners, a lot of people who are like maybe can relate to this too. You go into a new workforce, a new job at this fire station. You're young. What are some things that I think you had to learn quick versus like you're an 18-year-old who just graduated the academy, but also high school, and now you're like in an adult world where you're working with guys in their 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, whatever. You're the youngest one there, and you're like Bambi. Because a lot of people like who go to college have a couple years to kind of get their head on a swivel. They kind of get some, maybe some side jobs. They kind of work, and then by the time they graduate at 22, 23, then they kind of start their field. You started 4 or 5 years earlier than your peers did in the workforce. And I think that's a big jump. So what are some things that you had to learn, some like hard truths that you're like, man, actually, yeah, I guess you do got to do this, this, and this. Like, was there anything like that at all?
Yeah, so there were a few things. And one of the most important things that was made known was you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Spend more time listening than speaking. Being so young in the fire service, you have to take everything in as a sponge. You have to sit there and absorb it because, like you said, you've got senior firefighters, captains, lieutenants, drivers, other firefighters that you're working with that have been on the job 10, 20 plus years, and you're the new guy coming in. And what gets a lot of new guys in trouble is they come out of the fire academy and they say, "Oh, I know what works best because I went through this academy. I'm the freshest one out here." And that's not true. There's a lot of experience, a lot of on-the-job experience that you get to learn about just by being in community, just by having conversations with those that are on your crew. So the men and women that you serve beside, they've got so much experience. They've got so much to offer you. So it'd almost be silly not to sit there and just absorb their knowledge just like a sponge. And that's the biggest thing that I love to do is just sit and take in any type of opportunity to learn more about the profession by those that have more experience, because you learn so much about it.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a lot of young students that are fresh into something new, and they're like, I know what's best because I just went through this class.
Yeah. I can see that. It's a little bit of arrogance. And I will say there's a little bit too, and now that I'm on the other end of it, of not being the young blood, because I was kind of that way too sometimes when I was teaching and went in. It's like, all right, y'all, your textbooks, you haven't like read like a textbook that hasn't been written in this decade. Let me tell you what all the new stuff is. Or like with technology too. They're like, oh, you don't know how to use a smartphone? Let me show you. Like there's a little bit of arrogance that you need to swallow your pride a little bit and like realize that experience is really good. Now there is too a truth of like, well, let some new innovative ideas come in here.
Absolutely.
And let's take those innovative ideas, but put it through like a filter of like some wisdom and experience, and then maybe something beautiful can happen. But it's like the eagerness and wanting to do something fun of a youthful person versus wisdom when it comes together, and not one shining over the other.
Right.
Like you're young, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, that dismisses any new ideas, new innovation. But also innovation doesn't come in and go like all your wisdom experience.
Right.
And so there's a couple. I'm trying to remember. There's a show where someone did that, and like it might have been like Parks and Rec or something, and Ron Swanson was like, "Oh, like you didn't know about this, did you?" He was like, "Yeah, like why didn't you tell me that so and so doesn't do this?" I was like, "Well, you didn't ask."
Yeah.
And it's like, and so they had to like learn how to work together. And I feel like this is kind of how it is with most workplaces, but the fire department in particular, because unlike normal working places, you live with these guys. Like you're in the house with them for 24, 48 hours, whatever the shift may be. So you're actually like living life with these guys, right? I mean, do you live in the firehouse sometimes when you're on the call?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I'm trying to learn. I don't know all the things about firefighters, but I'm trying my best. Will, do you know everything about firefighters? No, you don't know everything? Okay, let's go. Well, let me ask you a couple questions. You ready?
Yep.
What is, you said there's a driver. Do they drive the fire trucks?
They're in charge of any of the apparatus. So whether it's the rescue.
Okay, what does the apparatus mean? We don't use fancy words here.
I'm about to.
All right, tell me. Yeah, what's the apparatus?
Drop some knowledge into you. All right. So it's the vehicles that you drive in, right?
Okay.
So it could be a boat. It could be a rescue, which is like an ambulance for some departments. It could be a pickup truck for others. It could be an engine. It could be a truck, right? A lot of times people think that a fire truck is like anything that's red that has lights on it, that's a fire truck. That's not true.
Not true.
That'll make some truck drivers angry.
Yeah, you listen here. That's not true. All right.
A fire truck has a big ladder on top of it.
Yes. If it does have a big ladder, not a fire truck.
A fire engine or a pumper, that's the one that's got all the fire hose on it. Now, some of the trucks have hoses on it too, right?
All right.
But a pumper or an engine, those are like the smaller fire vehicles, right? They've got the hose on it. They do have some ladders, but they don't have like the built-in like 100-foot ladders, right?
Okay, yeah.
So that's the main difference between the two.
Do you have to have a CDL license to drive that thing? Or a fire? I feel like it's bigger than, is that about an 18-wheeler-esque? The big engine ones?
Not as long as an 18-wheeler, but you do have to have a non-commercial, like a special driver's license to drive those.
Dude, I would destroy every little street, every little car. It does not seem easy to drive.
It's challenging, especially on some of the inner city roads and the smaller roadways. But the faster you go, the skinnier the truck gets. So I'm just kidding. That's not the case.
Quote that. Thank you, Captain Miller.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the drivers. Then you have, and they get you to point A to point B. Wait, first of all, did you say boats?
We do have a boat.
What?
Right?
Is there a firefighter boat?
There are, because the fire department's made up of. You have to. All right. First of all, let's take a step back.
Okay.
Somebody has a bad day, right?
I'm having one. Yep.
Their water pipes are busted. Who are you gonna call?
Ghostbusters.
No ghosts in the water pipes.
Sorry.
But you have
call
somebody
plumber.
that. Okay. Now
Right?
it's 10 o'clock at night, or it's the weekend, or you don't have a plumber's number and Google's not a thing, right? So
Yeah.
You're going to call 911 because now you have all this water flooding into your house.
Wait, can you do that?
People do it all the time, right?
Oh, I didn't know I could do that.
A tree that falls down in the middle of the road and is blocking the road.
Yeah, okay, that makes
Call
sense.
911, right?
Yeah.
Your house is on fire. Hopefully you're calling 911.
For sure.
You get stranded in the middle of a river or a lake and you don't know who else to call because you're stuck. You're going to call 911.
Oh.
So the fire department responds to so many different types of emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that somebody thinks that there is an emergency that they deem as an emergency, then we have a responsibility to respond. So if somebody gets stuck in the river, then we have a swift water team, a water rescue team. It's made up of firefighters that are trained. They go through a bunch of training to put on some wetsuits and dry suits, and they practice water rescue techniques.
What? That's awesome.
There's a lot of training. You've got specialty teams that they focus on rope rescues and rappelling out of buildings, and say you have a window washer on a high rise and they get stuck. Who are you going to call? Not Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
911.
Called Captain Miller.
911.
Or 911. Yeah, not you. Well, that makes sense because there's a lot of different little scenarios. Has there been a scenario when someone called and you're like, yeah, that's not really us. So sorry. Like if you someone calls and like a raccoon is in my backyard or a snake, like a venomous snake is in my yard, and they call 911. I guess that goes to animal control, right? Or that goes.
Unless somebody doesn't know who to call, then they call 911, and then the fire department or the police department.
Have you ever answered a crazy call where you're like, I was not expecting this call today, and like you had to show up and like, okay, all right, this is what my life is right now.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Any that you're allowed to share? It's okay if you can't. I know there's like certain rules, but I didn't know if you had any funny fire stories.
Any time that somebody calls 911, then somebody has to respond. You have to at least check it out because again, it's not you might not deem something as an emergency, but 90-year-old me might say this is an emergency. So who's to say, like, who's right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, ultimately, if you're calling 911 because you think something's an emergency, then you're going to come out, or somebody's going to come out and help them out, right?
Yeah.
There are steps that we take as a community to prepare and to help make sure that as a community we've got partners in the community like American Red Cross or different churches that can support in some of these emergencies, these bigger incidents that could easily overwhelm police and fire response. We do try to bring in other departments occasionally, like if there's extreme temperatures, like cold temperatures, a bunch of water pipes that are going to bust, then we may bring in other departments in the city to help support that. Because why wouldn't you involve the water department to help us shut off water to houses, right?
100%.
So a lot of that comes with that collaboration, that working together, that cohesiveness, and just being part of one community.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, coming together like that. So within the fire department, you said you have lieutenants and captains, and there's multiple types of chiefs. Could you explain that? So, like, what's a lieutenant? Is that a leadership role, or is that just like you've been there for a while, so you just get tenure or something? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, a lieutenant, a captain, a chief, they're all promoted positions. So they're leadership roles. And basically, if you were to look at the structure, you have your fire chief, who's like your number one person.
Right, the fire chief.
The fire chief. He's
not a fire chief, but the fire chief. I like it.
Right. You have the fire chief, who's overseeing the entire department.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And who does he report to, or she?
It depends on your city structure. A lot of times it's the city manager or administrator.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Below the fire chief, you typically will have a deputy fire chief. Below the deputy fire chief, you may have division chiefs. Your division chiefs, they'll oversee like a division chief over operations, and they oversee all the 911 response, EMS, fires. Then you have a division chief of logistics, and they oversee any needs like fire truck repairs, any special equipment, uniforms that we need. You may have a division chief that oversees professional standards or more of like a human resources role.
Yeah, okay.
And they oversee like the hiring process. You may have a division chief that oversees community risk reduction, which again is a community approach to how we do things, like the fire marshal's office. They oversee some of the enforcement, the education in the community.
What is a fire marshal? I thought they do like coding, like codes for buildings.
Yeah, so your fire marshal, they enforce a lot of the codes. They go out and inspect buildings, do a lot of the fire investigations, or somebody from that team will go out and handle that.
Okay.
Typically what you see, like lights and sirens driving down the street, that falls under your operations division. And then from there you have your battalion chiefs who oversee like the EMS side of things, emergency medical services. And they build relationships with the medical director, the one that signs off on your EMS response to things that you're allowed to do. And then you have battalion chiefs that oversee each of the shifts. So they're like your first line of operational.
And what
chiefs.
do you call him, chief? Like when you saw him?
You do.
But then what if there's more than one chief there? You do like chiefs?
Then it's hello chief, hello chief, hello chief, hello chief.
Is it really? Okay, I didn't know. Like I didn't know there was like a different like code name for. So you're saying there's battalion, division, deputy, and then the chief.
Yes.
Because I didn't know there's like you call all like I don't know a battalion chiefs like BCs or something like battalion chief.
You do sometimes. It just depends.
Okay.
But that's the structure, and then beyond the battalion chiefs, which the battalion chiefs there's two per shift. Again, it depends on where you're from.
Yeah, which fire department?
But the battalion chiefs, they oversee all the fire stations for that particular shift.
Yeah.
So they're on that same rotation of either the 24 or the 48 hours on, and they oversee. For us, they oversee 7 fire stations. And then the next shift will be 2 new battalion chiefs that oversee 7 fire stations. Below the battalion chiefs, you have your captains, which they're ultimately the ones that oversee the fire station. So each of the 7 fire stations, they've got somebody that's in charge of that one station, and they're the ones that are responsible for making sure that all the daily tasks get done, that crews are hustling to get to the calls, that the paperwork's getting done, the stations are being maintained. Below the captain level, then you have lieutenants. And typically your captains, they oversee the truck, and then the lieutenants, they oversee the engine. So they're like your person in charge for each of the units that are responding to the calls.
Yeah, when there's a call that goes out, would a division chief go too?
Not typically.
Not typically. This was like a big, like huge, monstrous fire.
Yeah. So typically your response, if it was a fire, then you're going to have your battalion chiefs are the ones that are going to go from the highest level.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, your battalion chief would go, not your division chief. That makes sense. It just made me think of this. Is New York City the biggest fire department in the world, do you think?
I don't know that answer.
I think it is. Will you Google that at some point? Well, I just imagine because New York City is huge, and I was just thinking, like, I went and toured one of the fire stations that you worked at, or currently work at, I don't know. But in there, this is in Georgia, by the way. It is? Yeah. Yo, what's up, y'all? I know fire facts, son. It's the largest one. How many employees does it say? No, it doesn't say. It's probably more than
15.
More than 15, but less than 10,000. Well, actually, I don't know. 10,000? That'd be a lot of firefighters. This is a big city, though. But no, I remember because like in the fire station, they had this giant like plaque of all the people that passed away at 9/11.
It just says 254 departments.
Whoa. How many departments?
Yeah. So
Only that's how many firehouses there are.
18 firehouses and then 39 EMS stations.
Is that close to what y'all have?
No, it's not.
Like a little bit more or a little less?
That's a little bit more than.
That's a little bit more than what you got. Yeah, by like, I don't know, 200. No, I mean, I just remember 9/11. You cannot, not to bring up a dark, hard topic, but that's where firefighters really got to shine of like the importance, I feel like, of like, oh man, on a global countries, because you just see all those pictures. I mean, police officers as well, but like those iconic pictures of firefighters with their helmets on, saving people's lives. And like that kind of gives me goosebumps to remember like that's what y'all are doing, is saving lives. And back to what you were saying about serving the public, like that's what you're doing. That's what every single one of those people are doing. One of the things that I don't know if people, maybe they do, and I give people not enough credit, is the medical training that the firefighters also have. They don't just fight fires. They're all EMTs, or is that right? I don't say that everybody's EMT, but or some type of level.
Yeah, for the most part in the metro area, you have to have both your fire and your medical certifications to be considered for a job. The medical side of things, it can last anywhere from 6 months to 2-3 years, depending on what level certification that you're applying for. And that the difference between those is the amount of medications that you can give, that some of the interventions that you can perform while you're on a scene. So yeah, there's more than just the fire certification.
Yeah,
you have to go through additional training after those 8 weeks or before, and obtain your medical certifications.
What if someone did the fire certification, did the medical certification, did like a lot of like all the way to the highest level, but then also did the water rescue certification? Is there another certification out there? Like, is there like a Rambo of firefighters? Do you know someone that has like all the certifications and it's just like, I could do everything, the Terminator?
There are a lot of classes that can be taken both at the local level, the state level, the national level. So you can go through so many different certifications. There's always training that the fire department is striving for, because again, you never want to. I can only speak for what I know, but for the most part, firefighters don't just want to sit stagnant. They want to be the best that they could be. They always want to improve their training, network with other firefighters from around both locally, state, and federal levels, or the national level, because that's a big deal. Networking is a huge thing. Community is a big part in the fire service, and that's how you learn about different traditions in the fire departments. That's how you learn about best practices in the fire service, new and innovative technology in the fire service. Like they've got cameras out there now that are, you can be in a room full of smoke and not see the hand in front of your face, and point that camera up and you can see everything in front of you. Because it picks up on heat sensors.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's thermal sensors. There's actually new technology that's being trialed right now. That's an augmented reality. So it picks up on the thermal.
What?
It picks up on the outlines of different materials, and it helps paint that picture in the fire department's response.
Yeah.
Both with the firefighters that are inside fighting fires, but also at the command post or the battalion chief that's monitoring all the conditions that are going on.
That's really cool.
Technology is always improving. There's always things that are the next best thing. So it's up to the department, it's up to the person, the firefighter to be better, right? It's you never want to sit still in one spot, because then you get complacent. And a complacent firefighter, that's who gets somebody hurt.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you know it all. You don't need to train anymore.
Yeah, you got to sharpen your tool at all times. Yeah.
Building construction's always changing. Things are made a lot cheaper now than they used to be, so things burn a lot hotter than they used to. Where before you may have had 10 plus minutes to get out of a house fire, now you may have 3 or 4 minutes to get out of a house fire, because fires now double in size every minute. And the hotter things are, everything's petroleum based, like held together with glues, so they burn super hot. That complacency in the fire service is something that can really get people hurt, and we don't like that.
We don't like that. No, of course not. And do you deal with, like, I don't know what percentage of your career have you said that it has been more medical related versus fire related? Because, like, I don't know, like, I guess I've heard of people's houses burning down, but I feel like it's more rare than people who have heart issues or breathing issues, and they call 911 because of whatever medical, and y'all respond to medical stuff. But am I wrong? I mean, like, do y'all do a lot of firefighters, or is it mostly medical?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A lot of the responses that we go to are medical related. A majority of the calls that we respond to are medical calls, where somebody falls down, somebody's sick, somebody needs help getting back up, they fall and break something, like, you name it. That's probably about 75% of the calls that we respond to.
Okay, wow, that's a higher percentage than I thought. Yeah.
With the rest of the 25% are going to be your fire related calls or car accidents.
Car accidents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you used the jaws of life before?
I have.
Gosh, I pray for you, man, because I know my dad has PTSD from a war zone, and I just imagine just calling up to some of those car crashes or even fire scenes. It's gotta be brutal. So, sorry if I know you probably have seen things that you're like, I wish I didn't see that today. In fact, I think since I've known you, that has happened, because I feel like Jesse could contest this. I feel like I called you once, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm on a scene right now," and I was like, "Oh, okay. Like, what's going on?" And you're like, "Not good." And I was like, got it. All right, we'll talk to you later. Like, love you, bye. Like, and like, you just like you were kind enough to answer the phone call. I was like, whatever I have to say is not important enough right now to distract you from what you're doing. So, like, go do that. I have two last questions for you. One is tied to that, which is, how do you cope? How do you deal? What would you tell a new firefighter or someone who's listening right now, who's like doesn't know the world of firefighters? Like, man, how do you see something that is physically horrific? Someone's being burned, someone's in a car wreck, someone's even like not even like gruesome, like someone's had a heart attack, and just you try to respond and they don't wake up. How do you emotionally and spiritually or whatever it is respond to that and wake up and go, I got to put my big boy pants on and do this job tomorrow and the next day. I mean, have you faced that, or have you seen people face that?
Yeah, that's another very good question, because there's so much tragedy that you see as a first responder, police, fire, EMS. Like there's, again, people are calling because they're not having a good day. This usually their worst day that they've ever had. So they call us for that. So how do we deal with that? How do we cope? How do we manage those incidents? There's been a big shift in the fire service now where we're addressing the stigma of mental health. Old school mentality was you pile everything up in a little shoebox. You stuff it in a box when you come back from the call. You put the lid on it, you slide it back under the bed, and then you get ready to go to the next call. And then what we're finding in the fire service as a whole is that there's an increased rate of firefighters or first responders that are suffering with depression, divorces, mental health issues, substance abuse, a lot of these things, and even up to increased suicides in first responders. So how do we overcome that? And one of the answers is promoting a culture that we check in with our peers, like our firefighters that we're working with, the first responders, our 911 dispatchers, EMS personnel, and we come together and we really focus on debriefing from that incident. We take an opportunity to pour out to each other, to have these conversations, to kind of, I hate to say relive the incident, but talk through the incident of what we've had. And science has shown that being able to talk through it helps our bodies, helps our brains process those incidents, and that's been something that's been very helpful, and proven through science. We've actually created a peer support team with the fire department, which is made up of various first responders from police, fire, 911, EMS. We've partnered with the state in their training programs, which is it's a week-long program where you learn about the mental health and psychology of first responders. You partner with other peer supporters across the state, and then you respond to help them with their tragic incidents that they've responded to, and help foster that conversation, so that way we can start to overcome and process these tragic incidents that we've responded to. There's also departments that have partnered with a mental health clinician, or these groups or organizations that are available 24/7, 365. You pick up the phone, you text their numbers, and you have a clinician that's available to support first responders. And a lot of that is education. You have to educate your departments that there's a shift. You're not expected to just see the worst case scenario and everything and pack it up and move on to the next call, but you're supported. Your leadership's supporting you. Your peers are supporting you. You reach out to your peer support teams, and that's a big transition that I've seen since I've started in the fire service from about 10 years ago. That is new, innovative ideas, ways that fire departments are fostering this culture of it's okay to not be okay. Like you're human too.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Superman or Superwoman when you respond to these calls. You just have to be good for the next one. And if that means that you have to take some time off, then you take care of yourself. Make sure you and your family are supported, and you're the biggest asset that we have is to make sure that you're okay. Because if you're not okay, then you can't be okay for the community.
I thank you for sharing that and sharing your heart behind that, because I think it mirrors kind of a lot of different parts of the world too, of like mental health and talking to people, the stigmas that you're talking about with the military. I think of that with my dad and his whole military crew that he's worked with over the years, of like suck it up, buttercup. It's kind of the mentality, and it's like actually like that leads to a lot of bad things. Don't suck it up, like let it out, like, and talk to somebody, and whether it's faith or whether it's just a good battle buddy or a friend, a mentor, a confidant, like a therapist, a counselor, like get it out, like talk about it and process it. It only can make you stronger. Man, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And, you know, let it be a little, anybody who's listening or watching, talk to somebody. If you ever feel kind of, if you're not a firefighter, but if you feel some of those, like, I don't know, lowness, sadness, depression, whatever it may be, talk to somebody. And then also be the person, if you're not struggling with that, be the person that person would want to talk to.
Yeah.
I think that's the other side of it. It's like, that means like you're not the one that's putting someone down or making fun of them or being a jerk. It's like, well, I can't talk to that person because I know they'll think less of me or they'll think I'm dumb or whatever. Like, don't be that guy or that girl either.
And that's a great segue too into the, like, we've been talking about public safety, but if we transition back into the youth ministry side of things, like you've got students all around you that are struggling with suicidal ideations, depression, substance abuse, relationships. Like, this stuff's not just applicable to public safety. This is real life scenarios. And I think you just mentioned something that is another big piece that was helpful for me in the fire service, but also in my faith journey too, is find a mentor, have somebody that you can trust, that you can pour into, that will be honest with you and this is a big thing, have courageous conversations. Somebody, you know that somebody really cares about you when they can have courageous conversations with you, because not to make you feel bad, but because they see potential in you.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big thing that we've been practicing in the fire department, is have hard conversations, because that's going to be what makes our team stronger. When you can have these tough conversations, you don't have to worry about stepping on eggshells because you hurt somebody's feelings. If something's on your mind, you say it, and it's up to that person to receive it in a way that knows it's for growth.
We just talked about this. We actually talked about it literally this morning at Sunday school. I talked about, in my college small group, the difference between calling someone out and lifting them up to call someone out to tear them down. And the key difference is, if I'm going to call you out or have those hard conversations or have those just not fun maybe conversations, is I'm not calling you out and telling you this is what you did wrong, go fix it, because you're now putting shame on them, shame on you, and when you have redeemed yourself, you may come back. That's calling out to tear down. To call out to tear up is saying, hey, here's these lists of things that maybe we need to work on. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to help you. I'm gonna be there, live life with you, and let's talk through these things. And now it's not like a shame thing. It's I got someone on my team. I got someone that's trying to help me out, to lift me up. And I think that's a key difference. Sometimes people forget, like, yeah, you may have the list 100% correct. You're good job. You got the list correct. You know, where you're like, what's that old saying? They say, like, I tell like it is, or I speak the truth, or something. Oh God, what they say? Oh, I can't remember. It's bugging me. I can hear someone in my life right now saying it, and I can't think of exactly how they say it. But I always say too, like, if you don't say it with compassion, it's just cruelty. And so, like, say it with compassion and say, I'm going to walk with you, and help them through that learning process. As a mentor, that's what you're supposed to do. And as a mentee, it's find that mentor that's willing to walk with you and help you out, to help you grow in that process. Yeah, I like that a lot. So, well, Captain Chad Miller, I appreciate you being here, being on the podcast. We like to end each episode with a little Ben 10. I'm not going to ask you 10 different things, but just within like 10 seconds, tell us the best piece of advice that you've ever heard. Go.
Oh, the best piece of advice. I'll relate it back to what we talked about earlier. Soak in everything that you can like a sponge, because there's so many people around you that know a lot, that can invest in you. You have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. So soak it up. Find a mentor. And take it in. Yeah. That might have been 11 seconds. I'm sorry.
No, I like that. My quote is always. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Is the camera on me right now? We put the camera on Chad for a second. All right, you put the camera back on me. Mine has always been, renewed shall be the blade that was broken. It's been sticking with my heart for a while, of just like thinking about that quote of renewed with the blade that would be broken. And sometimes like we have to be renewed and refreshed and like regenerated, like in the world that we live in. If we don't take the time to do that, the blade, which is cutting through all the garbage of the world, right? That's what blades do. We're cutting through it. We're trying to get through it, but it gets broken. If we don't renew it, if we don't take the time to really heal it and forge it back together, it's just going to keep getting broken and broken. That's mental health. That's physical health. That's emotional health. So we got to keep our blades sharp. And just like that. Is that a fire call, though?
It's not. It's my mom.
Oh, okay. Well, tell her we said hey. But no, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you being here. Is there any last thing that you wanted to say that I didn't get to ask? I feel like there's like 5 more questions I want to ask. I want to ask about the LA fires. Would y'all ever get called up to be like, hey, we need help for like a big forest fire?
We haven't received any calls yet for support.
I didn't know.
Not from the East Coast.
Okay, not from the East Coast. Okay, all right. You act like that was a dumb question, and I don't appreciate that, okay? All right? You call me out to lift me up, okay? I didn't know that was a dumb question. I just didn't know. Has the Smoky Mountains ever been on fire?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done it? Have you done any forest fires?
I haven't.
All right. Well, you haven't lived. We've
done some smaller scale in the national forest here, but not to that level.
Not to that level. Okay. Well, that's actually like praise be to God. Like I don't do that on the East Coast. We don't want forest fires. All right. Well, Chad, thank you for being here. You're the best. Thank you all for listening and subscribing to the Bid Mayfield podcast. Until next time, peace.